bit strange for building the back or a pickup bed. For instance, this tubing, which is extremely heavy, and it's quite a big diameter, as you can see. Now, what's going to happen with that is this will form the top, rolled top on the sides, the backboard and the tailboard. And what I'll end up doing is I've got a piece of angle iron here, and I will use the angle iron in the vise with the tubing and cut just under 3 centimetre gap in it from end to end. And then what that will do is go over the 3 centimetre box section that I'm making the sides out of, and including the 0.8, 0.9 mil on each side of the sheeting. So the idea is this will make a top capping, and basically what I'll do is drill holes in the top, I put studs in it, drop it down, and then weld the stud into place so that there's no welding along the steel or the tubing itself. It's just a perfect fit. That's the idea behind it. And then make picture corners, 45-degree picture corners for where all the sides actually touch each other, with possibly a little piece of rubber so that there's no metal to metal clunking. It just, the rubber sits against it. That's the plan. We'll see if that works out that way. But they are quite heavy, but of course a third of it's going to be gone when we cut the slot in it. But that slot needs to be perfectly straight, otherwise it's going to sit wrong on the side, and I'll show you that when I make the first one. So I made up this little sample here. So this is basically 3 centimetre box section. You got your 1 mil steel on either side, and this is the tubular that I've got. Obviously this is just a small piece, just as an example of the concept will work. And obviously the idea would be, as you can see here, as long as we keep these sides flat, we wouldn't have to do any welding here. What we would have to do is put some studs on the bar. Obviously this is tubular this way, this would be the end piece for argument's sake, but the bit that goes laterally along, we can put like studs in it, drill holes in the top of the round tubing and slide it over the top, and then just weld them into place every, you know, whatever, every 10 centimetres or whatever it might be, and I think that'll be more than strong enough. Then what we can do just before the end, after we've welded everything, we'll leave the ends open and put cavity wax in them as well. But I think that will work. If you look how, okay, you know, you have to imagine that's longer, but you imagine that as long as that line's straight there and it contacts all the points, that should do the trick. And that would basically make the sides of the this would make the sides of the vehicle. So if you can imagine, this would be kind of up here somewhere. I mean, that will sit on there, but I'll give you an idea of what the concept could be like going all the way along. Obviously it would be up here somewhere. And then what I could do is actually cut these, then put this, bring this over the edge and put a 45-degree angle in it. So there's a 45 on the backboard and a 45 here, and as you lifted the sideboard up, they wouldn't basically pitch your frame together. So that's the idea, that's the concept, and I think that'll work. I mean, obviously this is just a piece of tube. It was just a spare bit I had, but I think that will definitely work. So tell me what your thoughts are on it when you see the video. Okay, so this is a small sample of the tubing, the small tubing. Now this will go onto the bottom of the valance all the way around the vehicle, and the metal will be rolled underneath this, so it's got a rolled edge, if you like. And I've also got some bar here, which is exactly, but it's solid bar. Let me show you. As you can see, this is solid bar, and obviously this is tubular, but it's exactly the same size. So the idea is that when the tubing goes along the side to the bottom of the vehicle, where it goes down below the chassis, obviously we'll have to take a piece out where where the axle is, so the axle can move up and down, obviously. The idea is to use the tubing to go along until we have an arch piece where the axle will sit, and then I'll use the solid bar, because with the solid bar I can heat it with a blowtorch and bend it to the actual shape I want, and it won't kink. Obviously if I do that with tubing, I'd have to cut it so much to try and make a round in it, whereas without the bar I can heat it, bend it over something and get the right, and still get the corner to roll over in the same position. So that's the reasoning behind it. These are all things that I'm hoping will work. I can't see why they won't, but you never know with these things. I tend to make this up as I go along. I have a basic idea in my head about how I want to do it, but it's all inside my head. I've done a few drawings which are pretty amateurish to say the least, but it gives me an idea or a concept of how it's going to work out. I've cut this piece out here already. This piece will come out, but I've got it, obviously you can see the corrosion that's inside here. I don't know if that's showing up all the way up there, but it's quite bad, so I have to cut this piece off, and because it's got two pieces already on it, it should be strong enough to hold up one side, so I'll do one side at a time and then come back to it. But obviously I need to get a wire wheel or something in there to clean this rust out. So what I'll do is I'll make this once this is all cleaned and painted in red lead colour or whatever paint we've got, I'll make the piece on from here and then onto here, because as you can see there's a swage line there and I need to get it into the corner. That bit's got to be cut out, but I need to get this one into this corner so it's up against this piece here, and then take another piece and come out. It'll step out a little bit, but there's nothing much I can do about that. And then what I'll do is once this is in and I know this will sit up against it, I won't weld any of this, and I will then undo these tacks here, because I need to get the height exactly right for the top of the cab. So I'll do that. Once that's perfect to the millimeter, then I can weld it all in place. So this is my next job, to get rid of all this rust and crap. I've cut this section out already. That's it lying down there. Treated it with Brunux, which is a rust encapsulator. Goes like a purple colour, but it catches all the rust, but basically encapsulates anything that's there. And then there's this red lead on it now, so that's dried up. So I've cut this section here, and that will now go, excuse me, in there, just below that swedge line, and then I'll put another piece from there to the top, because I need to offset it, otherwise the door will be an issue. You can see there's a swedge line and the door there, and they need to match up. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then put the piece on top. See, I've put these 4x4 side rails in now. I've had to offset this. Obviously once I take the cab off I can get to this one. I've had to offset it because of this coach line here, which I want to keep when I put another metal on top of it. What it'll do is actually sit, and it'll be in line with this door. So I've got the one on that side done, and I've got this bar round the top, which is the first one that I made, which fitted perfectly, fortunately. I could have altered it, and what I'll do with the next two, so there'll be another one of these made tomorrow, which will come down below the window line. Obviously there's going to be a window in it, a rear window. I have to work out the parameters on that, but that's basically going to be between this one on top and the next one, and then there'll be one on the bottom just before it starts to turn. So all the edges of this cab will basically come out and turn this way in. So there'll be 4 of those made, 4 corner pieces, which are going to be English wheeled here and here on this side. The ones on the bottom will be then done the same way onto this metal bar, and the one on the top to the roof. But I'll make them to fit because these are not exactly right. As you can see here, this is perfectly, if I can get it for you, as you can see there, I think we can see it. That's dead level. I don't know if I can I go in? I did go in, there you go. You see that's pretty level there. But what's not level, I don't know if you can see it, or it's an optical illusion, but the cab here has been damaged on the top. The cab, the body, if you like, has been damaged here. It's been pulled out of shape on this corner here. And this one's a bit flatter if you see it. And they've got to be cut off anyway to make the corners. So I wanted to get something that was actually level. So the next one coming down and so on and so forth. But everything else is done. So the back legs are in. They're not welded in yet. So let me pull the camera out. That's my mistake. How do we do that? Hang on. Oh, we're going in, it's out. Sorry about the bad camera work. So yeah, I've got the legs in place, but they're not welded. They'll be bolted in place, and the same there. I had to cut off the original bits. So that's the basing. So you can see it's secured here, on the middle of the chassis there, and on the legs at the front there. And that gives me enough. This is a 10 centimeter stick out here, so it'll give me about 8 or 10, maybe, no, sorry, maybe a centimetre in between the back of the cab and where the headboard's going to be, maybe a little less. So yeah, I've got that all in place. I'm quite happy with that at the moment. So I'll get these other 2 bars made. What I intend to do then is, once these 3 bars are in place, I'll then use, this is 3 centimetre, this is 5, this is 3. I'll use 3 centimetre square bar to come down in between them to make the framing that's going to go around the back window. But yeah, it seems to work okay. The other thing I've done is I've done the measurements. You can see here I've got this pushed to one side, but this is that 2.5 metre box bar here, which will obviously come to the end. It's just put in there at the moment to check it. And when that sits hard up against that chassis rail down there, it's exactly the same on the other side. There's just a tiny 1 mil or so wiggle room. So, and that's perfect. And this is what the bottom sheeting will go on to. So this is, again, it's not put up properly. It's only pinned in one place and it's too far forward. But this is, if I can go back a little bit, this is basically how it will look. So how the arches will go on it, roughly. Obviously what I'm going to do here is this will come down and be rounded, and so will the back be rounded into it as well. It won't be square like that, obviously. And the other thing that we'll do is, as I said, is I will put it through the beader machine and use a bead all the way up here, so it'll come up and roll round again, and there, and the same on the other side here. Same thing here. So there'll be a bead that rolls down here, along, up and along again, and the top one will have exactly the same thing in it. So it looks like it's coach built. So I just showed it to my wife and she said, oh, I really love the arches and whatever. So yeah, it's coming on.